Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Mary Beth Hogland. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Living in the Shadows, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much wherever books are sold. But if you guys want to get everything that Mary has to offer, do yourself a favor and head directly to her personal site. That's marybethhogland.com. There, not only will you be able to find more information on Mary herself, but you'll find more information on this book, Living in the Shadows, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the Amazon page for purchasing. So one more time, that's marybethhogland.com. And I will say, Mary was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. UR Link Print and Media Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through UR Link. You can find them at urlinkpublishing.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Mary here on the line because her book we're discussing, Living in the Shadows, it's a fictional narrative, okay? So first and foremost, it's created with the emphasis for entertainment. But what I love so much about it is even though it's a fictional narrative, there is an education that we're all going to be able to receive. And I'm so excited that we have Mary here on the line because, listen, she's the expert, okay? She's written the book. She's done the research. She's going to be able to articulate all of the nuances in the book much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring her here on the line with us. First and foremost, Mary, thank you very much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, listen, it's a pleasure to have you here. We're very much looking forward to really learning about this journey, embarking upon it with your characters and with yourself, but also receiving the education that I know we're going to be able to get. Now, Mary, before we go into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm 68 years old. I know that's not kosher to talk about your age, but I am, and I'm retired. I worked 38 years in the electric utility business in Texas in software development and inventory management. So I've had a very long career in business. I also got my degree in teaching, never really used it. But myself, I was married to Wally Hogland for 44 years. We had a son when I was the age of 41. And he actually wrote part of the book. He added the poetry in the book. And he is helping me co-author my next book. He is going to medical school at University of Arkansas Medical School to become a PhD in microbiology. So the second book's going to have some microbiology bioweapons in it. So that should be fun. I grew up on a farm, and so I have very down-to-earth beliefs and family life.
Thank you very much for articulating that. And what a beautiful thing. I mean, always having your family be involved with the work that you're doing. And in this instance, you're talking about your son, how he really helped you with this book. He's helping you with the next book that you have on the horizon. I mean, that's such a beautiful thing, right? And especially here at People of Distinction, knowing that this is a family endeavor that my father and I have been working with, it's definitely something we can appreciate. So thank you very much for articulating that. Best of luck with everything moving forward. Now, Mary, without further ado, Living in the Shadows. Tell us a little bit about your book.
When I was about 45, I decided I wanted to be a writer. And of course, that sounds crazy, but I started writing, and I was always just enamored with murder mysteries. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to write the greatest murder mystery. And so I started writing it, and it really, every time I'd go back and read what I wrote and had written, it made me feel bad. it had this negative energy about it. So I said, well, that's not going to work. So I've always been a great fan of Elvis Presley. And, he had passed away at 1977. And so I thought, what if he actually had staged his death, like all the rumors say? What would he be doing? How would he have done it? What would he have found? So I came up with a fictional character named Eric Preston. And I went through all of that kind of analysis. He staged his death. He then goes and tries to find himself. He had always been, the center of attention. He is a superstar. When he'd walk into a room, everybody would stop talking and look at him, and he would feel their love and attention and know that he was special. Well, when he staged his death and went into living a life, all of that went away. I mean, he had to be incognito because he didn't want anyone to know, because he had actually had encountered some people that were trying to kill him before he had staged his death in the book. And so he goes through life and tries to start to know himself. Who is he really? Did people really love him for who he really was, or just because he is famous and could buy him nice gifts? So those were the things that he had to go through, was to find out who he really was. How did he deal with the anonymity of who he is now, and trying to find someone that would love him for just who he is. So living in the shadows, back to the title, Living in the Shadows, he had to live in the shadows and not out in fame and fortune, not in the spotlight. So that's where I kind of came up with the name.
One thing that I'm curious about, and you, of course, started off by stating this, let's go into the concept of inspiration. Now, as you stated, you didn't start writing, or at least embark upon this creative journey, until you were in your 40s. What inspired you to become a writer?
Well, my husband, I suppose it was kind of a combination. My husband had a crazy life. When he was 46, he had a right brain bleed stroke due to taking a antihistamine. It is currently now taken off the market, but he went through this stroke. And then in 2001, he was laid off from a job that he had gone through 20 years, and because they had outsourced his job to Poland. And then in 2002, he was diagnosed with advanced stage 4 cancer. He went through 40 treatments of radiation and so forth, with all the doctors prognosticating that he was going to get the cancer back in 9 months, and probably never would get over it. Then in 2016, he had another stroke. 2019, he had a heart attack, and then MRSA pneumonia, and survived all of those things, but passed away from a failed medical procedure and bled to death. But along the way, he wrote a book. I went a long way around to tell you that he wrote a book called Second Chance for Life. And I did help him with the book. I did a lot of the editing and research. So I got the real fever then, but I had been working on this book in the background too, Living in the Shadows. So it was just kind of a combination of all of that. But what really moved me to finish it was, getting Wally's book published, and I wanted to do the same. So,
absolutely. Mary, first and foremost, my condolences. I'm so sorry to hear about the journey that you and, of course, your family endured during all of that. I'm so sorry. But coming through it, you were able to embark upon this journey, help him with his book, and now you've put out this fantastic book and have a second one on the horizon. So there's definitely, as very small of a silver lining as it may be, there is a silver lining there, and that is beautiful in and of itself.
I also tried to take what we learned from all of his adversities. That's kind of where I was leading to the book, because in the book,
Absolutely,
even though Eric was trying to find a safe haven, to where he could be, where he wouldn't be, attacked by this mafia, people that were after him, or just he wanted to find a place where he could live in peace, there was always darkness that he would encounter, adversities, illness, near-death experiences, so forth. And through it all, his faith is what kind of pulled him through, his perseverance. So through knowing himself, he learned that when in search of the light and living a life of perfection and safety, you're always going to find the darkness, and you have to be strong and resilient and use your faith to pull you through.
Absolutely. Again, here on the line with Mary Beth Hogland, we're discussing her fantastic book, Living in the Shadows, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through her personal site, marybethhogland.com. And Mary, next question that I'd love to go into. We know about the book. We know about really your inspiration and the story behind it. Now, I'm curious, even though this is a fictional narrative, what type of research did you do in preparation for this book?
One of the adventures Eric goes on, a couple of times actually, is a trip to the Amazon. He meets a lady in Basel, Switzerland, and finds out she's a missionary, and he kind of falls in love with her, and he wants to find a place of safety. So she talks about going back to the Amazon where she had been on this mission trip, and she got to talking about the Yanomami Indians that she, met and so forth. And he decided that's where he wanted to go. Well, in doing all that research, I had to, geography is not one of my strong suits. So I had to find all, these Indians and find, how to get there. And so I did a lot of research on the Amazon and the Amazon River. There's an incident going down the Amazon River. And the place where the Yanomami live is in the mountains in the Amazon, and it's surrounded by, of course, these Indians live in Stone Age almost. They have no technology whatsoever, and this is for real. These Indians do exist, and they have beautiful, beautiful land. They live in huts, I guess you would say, but this land is filled with gold and diamonds and jewels, and the mankind is encroaching on this land of theirs and destroying it. But my deal was I wanted them to enjoy the land and the beauty, but even though there's a place in the book that's called the Land of Love, and this area they go to, Andrea and Eric go to, and to be with just by themselves. And it's a beautiful valley filled with fruit trees and flowers, and a lake with a waterfall. And in the bottom of the lake is diamonds, and they find just raw jewels there. And they say, well, where do these jewels come from? And they see behind the waterfall there's a cave. So they go into the cave, and that cave is going to be a very dark place for them in the future. So even my point here is you can find this beautiful, sacred land and lake area, but there's darkness and evil lurking. And you have to have your guard up and be prepared to deal with this darkness at all times.
Mm-hmm. And then next, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
Well, I never really thought that I would go down this path of knowing myself and for it to be so important for me. And then also to work on the faith issue, to when the darkness does come into your life, how to deal with it. And, because I had been through all the adversities with my husband, we found out that we really don't control a whole lot. You think you're healthy and you eat right, and then all of these crazy things happen to you. And I had an accident when I was 11, fell off a mountain, severed my right kidney and burst my liver. And I was just on a vacation somewhere. So adversity hits us all. So I never really thought I would be putting so much of myself into the book. But on every corner, it's me. And my son then comes in with these beautiful poems. And so the book is so much of me.
I know we've already started to go into this. And this is something that we've discussed a number of times already throughout this interview in varying ways. As we start to tie up this interview, Mary, I want to give you an opportunity to really close out on this and really make it a very clear, concise message for our listening audience. In your opinion, what would you say is the main message or the main theme to your book that you really want to make sure our listening audience is aware of?
What I really would like to get across is that we're all faced with darkness. And the scary part is that darkness can reside within us. So if all of us, me included, every day, if we make the intention to do good, to do everything through love. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Dyer. My husband and I both were, and he wrote the book, The Power of Intention. And I always had the hardest time figuring out what is he talking about, but it finally got through to me after listening to a ton of his tapes, that if we intend to do something and we follow through with it, or even try to follow through with it, but if we intend every day to do everything through love and to do no harm, think of what the world would be. When we see people that are being abused by the police or by other citizens or just governments, abusing people. Mm-hmm. If we stood up for what was right and know that if we just tried to do everything through love, maybe others would see that and try to do the same. It's like the people that drive through McDonald's and they buy the coffee for the car behind them. If we all tried to do good things for people every day, would the world be affected by that? And I think they would.
Absolutely. Wonderfully said. And really, what a fantastic way to end the interview. This is something that we discuss constantly here at People of Distinction. We're always discussing ways that our human family can come together, can grow, and can advance. And we truly mean that here at People of Distinction. When we talk about our human family, guys, we are all in this together. We may have varying opinions. We may look different. We may act different. But we are all on this planet together. We're all in the same team. And what Mary is talking about there is really something that is so powerful. Imagine what the world would look like if we recognized that on a day-to-day basis, and we treated each other with the respect and the care and the dedication to really help each other advance. What type of world would we live in? I think this is a fantastic book on so many levels. And the theme and the message that can be pulled is something that is truly remarkable. So listen, you know what you guys have to do. We can continue to talk about it. We can reiterate the point over and over. At the end of the day, now the choice is on you. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Go directly to marybethhogland.com and purchase your copy of Living in the Shadows. You surely will not be disappointed. Mary, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much once again for being a guest with us on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much.